So I think we've got quite a lot to pack into an hour and a quarter. So perhaps we start now. I think we've still got a few people entering, but hopefully they'll be able to pick up as we go along. So yeah, thanks to everybody who's just joined or joined in the last few minutes. As I just said, my name's John Lees. I work at the Lifelong Learning Centre here at the University of Leeds. We're going to be talking today about the Science Foundation Year and all the great courses that you can progress onto after that. So thanks so much for giving up part of your, I don't know what you guys are like, but rainy, cold Tuesday evening. At least it is here in Bradford anyway. So as I said, my name's John, but I'm also here with colleagues Kate and Katie, who are course academics on the programme. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves, perhaps, if that's all right.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Katie. I'm the program manager for the Science Foundation programs. I also teach some of the maths. So I'm going to say, hopefully you get to know us if you choose the Science Foundation year, but I can ask any questions you might have about those kind of things, about what you might want to expect, or even for some people that aren't a big fan of maths, kind of how it's going to be. So yeah, ask me any questions you want.
Hi everyone, I'm the appropriately named Kate Plant because I'm one of the biology tutors on the programme, and I am going to give you a little bit of a taster of some of what we do in biology, just a little scratch of the surface so you get an idea of the way we think about it, and I am also happy to answer any questions. I can't answer quite as many questions as Katie can across the breadth of the programme, but I can answer any of your biology questions if you have anything.
Well, thanks, Kate and Katie. And you'll hear plenty more from both Kate and Katie as we go on. Liam's here as well. Liam also works with us in the Lifelong Learning Centre. If you have any tech problems, do let us know, and either myself or Liam can see if we can solve it for you. Really obvious things, but it's probably worth saying. If you have any problems hearing us, check your microphones turned up and check your volumes turned up on your computer. I know it sounds daft, but it's something I would do, to be honest with you, all the time. I probably can't hear anything, realize I'm muted. And also often, you know, the best way and easiest way to fix things on Zoom is to kind of log back out and log back in, and often that can kind of fix a lot of gremlins that may be happening. So I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully I can do this, if you just bear with me 2 moments. But just to say as well, while I'm looking for the correct slides, that you know, this isn't a kind of one-stop shop today where you find out about the foundation years and then that's it. We're really, really happy, you know, to continue the conversation after this as well. So if you have further questions that come up, please feel free to get in contact with us. We're really, really happy to go through, you know, anything with you with regards to the course, and anything you want to know about entry requirements, for example, or progression routes. So yeah, that we're really, really happy to answer any questions. Don't feel that you've got to ask them all today, and if you don't, that you know, we won't be able to answer them for you. So just bear with me 1 moment. I'm just looking for the brilliant stuff. So the session aims really today is to go over the foundation years, looking at the criteria for entry requirements, and a bit of broad overview of what the foundation years are and who they're for, and I'll cover that. And then I'm going to pass over to Katie, who's going to give us a bit of a course overview, and then Kate, who's going to give a bit of a taster on biology and some of the things you'll be learning in biology when you're on the course. And then we're very, very lucky to be joined by a couple of students as well. So we've got Nick, who is a graduate from the university. He graduated with a degree in neuroscience, so he's going to let you know a little bit about what it's like to be on the course and then progressing onto your degree. And also Stephen Sterling as well, who's kind of given up part of his evening to talk a bit about his experiences. He's on the first year of a psychology degree after completing the Science Foundation year. And as I said, throughout the session, please ask as many questions as you want, and we can go through them with you. So I guess the first place to start, the logical place perhaps to start, is what is a foundation year? Because it may be for some people the first time, you know, you've experienced a foundation year or you've really looked into it. Well, the first thing to know about a foundation year, they're particularly for people who aren't predicted or don't have the grades required for the particular degree that you're looking at. And in those instances, you may be able to take a foundation year to prepare you for the course you're going to be going on to study. And it really does do that. Foundation year, it's kind of in the name, really. It gives you the foundational knowledge that you need to progress on to degree level studies. So it's a year that you'll study at university prior to progressing on to your degree course. So it is an extra year of your studies, but it's an extra year for you to really develop your understanding of a particular subject area. Now, that might be the course that you're going on to, but also the wider subject area as well, before you go on to your chosen degree. And once you finish your foundation year, you then progress on to the first year of your relevant degree. So when you're applying, you're essentially applying for your foundation year and also the course that you'll be going on to, as opposed to just applying for a foundation year. And I think, Katie, you'll probably let me know if I'm wrong about this, but I think the science foundation year is probably the course that progresses on to the most schools and courses in the university, I would have thought. It's a huge range of different programs that you can progress on to after. So things such as courses in the Faculty of Engineering and Physical Sciences, so engineering courses like, just off the top of my head, aeronautical, mechanical, chemical engineering, probably a load more as well. Healthcare courses, so things like diagnostic radiography, audiology, cardiac physiology, things as well in nursing, midwifery, dentistry, maths courses as well, and lots of different courses in that field, and biological sciences, computing, physics, chemistry, food science, biomedical science. There's a huge list essentially of courses that you can progress onto. So you can see how the foundation year leads on to many, many different courses. And there might be lots of you in the here today who are actually looking at quite different programs that you want to progress onto. In fact, actually, if it is possible and you don't mind using the chat, it'd be really nice to know a little bit about the courses you're interested in studying. So if I could ask you guys, if that's okay, just to put in the chat maybe the course or just subject area that you're interested in and hoping to study at university. It might help us, with questions and things like that, perhaps a bit later on as well, but it'd just be really nice to know. So I guess the next thing is, who are foundation years for? Well, they're for anybody really who feels that they, benefit from that extra year and that supportive environment that a foundation year provides, and that extra kind of breathing room, I guess, it gives you to really develop your skills, your knowledge and understanding of your subject area before you go on to your chosen degree. Because it is a preparatory course, it does have lower entry requirements as well than you would be expected to have if you were to progress directly onto a course in the Faculty of Maths and Physical Sciences or the School of Healthcare, for example. So our interdisciplinary science foundation year, our academic entry requirements at A level are C, D, D, and BTEC it will be merit pass. So it's quite significantly different, I would say, in comparison to some of our degree courses and what they would ask for. Just to say as well that, we've mentioned A level and BTEC, but we're not limited to those courses. There's other courses that can be used for entry onto the interdisciplinary science course. So, for example, access to higher education diploma qualifications are accepted. There will be other courses as well. And if you're an adult, by adult, we mean somebody who's 21 and above. Often, if you don't have A levels and you don't have BTECs or access qualifications, we understand that, your life and your potentially work experience as well can often be taken into consideration in lieu of certain qualifications as well. So if you are somebody who's 21 and above and you're not sure about these type of qualifications, if you meet the entry requirements, get in touch with us and have a conversation with us. And I'll speak a bit about our guidance service that we offer as well for adult learners, because, as I said, often there may be other avenues that we can look at. Just to mention as well that GCSEs are often still a requirement as well for particular courses, and particular routes will have particular GCSE that they will need. So it's worth always looking at the course that you're going to be progressing onto as well. And finally as well, I haven't really mentioned that we all work at the Lifelong Learning Centre, and I probably should really, shouldn't I? So So yeah, at the Lifelong Learning Centre, we have a wide range of students from all different backgrounds and all different ages as well, studying on our courses, right from students who are finishing sixth form or college and perhaps 18 when they're starting in a foundation year course, right up until students in their 70s. I think the oldest student, I'm going to say 74, I think perhaps, that we currently have studying at the Lifelong Learning Centre. So it's a brilliant opportunity to meet a huge range of students from all different backgrounds and all different ages as well. And it's a great community at the Lifelong Learning Centre as well. And at the Lifelong Learning Centre is where you'll be studying for the first year before you progress onto your courses. And you know, when you're here, there's an opportunity to access tailored study skill support. So to, you know, the things you'll learn on your course around maybe putting together essays, reports, for example, which will really prepare you for your course. But there's the opportunity for additional study skill support as well that you can request for individual support as well with tutors. You know, the Lifelong Learning Centre is really, really good at preparing the students to go on to progress and study in departments with kind of international reputations as well in their field as well. And there's also great pastoral support as well. So our student support officer, Paul, is somebody who's there to support you with, you know, those additional things that might come up that are, you know, outside of your course. It could be financial things or extra concerns that you have. There's people to support you with that as well, or sit down and have a chat with you. You know, while you're at the university, there's the great opportunity to use the career centre as well, and, you know, professional development and all that as well. So there's lots of great opportunities there that you can access. And it really is a nice, friendly environment in the Lifelong Learning Centre and across the university, but particularly in the Lifelong Learning Centre. You know, we have our own area where students can come and work together, and there'll be lots of foundation year students who'll be, you know, studying there probably after they've finished, you know, on their foundation year. Often students will carry on studying in the Lifelong Learning Centre. In fact, I was speaking to a student only yesterday who was actually on a master's course and still comes back to the Lifelong Learning Centre to do their studies because they feel that's the kind of their home on the campus. So even though you're going to be going off and studying in perhaps wildly different schools and faculties across the university, you know, there's still the opportunity to come and study in, you know, and you know, at the Lifelong Learning Centre and access everything there. And I will really quickly mention as well something which I think is really important just to touch on as well. As well as our academic entry requirements, we also have widening participation criteria for our interdisciplinary science foundation year. So as well as meeting our academic requirements, you also have to meet one of the following. You either grew up in public care, your permanent address was in an area with low participation in higher education, so not many people went into university study from that area, or your GCSEs in the year you took your GCSEs, your school, so not you, but your school's pass rates were lower than the national average. So it's only one of the three that you need to meet. And I do understand that probably, particularly the last two, might not be apparent to you straight away. If that's the case, you know, our email address is there. Please get in touch with us and we can have a further conversation with you and find out if you're eligible or not. And there is plenty of time at the moment. So the UCAS deadline, the initial UCAS deadline is the 25th of January. Now the 15th of October has passed. So there is plenty of time now for you to get in touch with us if you want and have a conversation around that. And finally, or nearly finally, I think, our Studies in Science course is another course we have alongside our interdisciplinary science course. So we have two science programs. This course progresses onto a number of different courses across the university as well, but works as a conversion course for people who have maybe done A-levels or other qualifications and maybe humanities-based qualifications and now are really interested in going into a scientific area. So it works as a conversion course, and as a result, it does have higher entry requirements. Are they BBC? Is that right? I think, or I don't, something like that. I think, but it's on our website. But they are higher than what we would ask for the interdisciplinary science course, but they don't have a widening participation criteria for that particular route. And it's probably worth me saying as well, there are some courses that you can't progress onto as well, particularly in the School of Healthcare. So dentistry and healthcare related courses are often not a possibility to progress on after Studies in Science. And finally, because I think this can be a concern for everybody as well, particularly at the moment, you know, but finance and student finance, just to say, are not affected in any negative way by studying on a foundation year when you're at university. Student Finance England considers it the normal duration of your course. It's classed as an extended degree, which means you get everything that everybody else is eligible for while you're studying on your foundation year and beyond. So, you know, your maintenance loan, that's the living cost loan, your course fees loan, your tuition fee loan, and anything else you're eligible for, whether it's childcare, disability grants, for example, or carers support. And actually, there's additional financial support you might be able to get from the University of Leeds. So additional bursaries, which could be up to £3,000 a year on top of what you get from student finance, depending on your circumstances. And I guess the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to stop waffling on, is just that, you know, when you're at university and you're studying your foundation year, you're just a student like everybody else. It's not different. You're not going to come out of your degree with a certificate that says foundation year in biological sciences or anything like that. It'll just mention the course that you've progressed onto. And right from the start, you will have access to everything every other student does, you know, the library, all the societies, all the support and everything you can get, you know, access to on campus, you will get from year one, because you're a student just like everybody else. So don't think that you're going to be any different just because you're doing a foundation year. You're certainly not. And yeah, I'll pass over to you, Katie, if that's okay. John, I'll stop sharing my screen now so you can share yours if that's okay.
Now comes the fun part of hoping that I can also share my screen.
Well, you can't do a worse job than I did, so don't worry about it.
Oh, you never know. You never know. Right. And super. Whoops, and I need that on full screen. Bear with me. Is it that one? Is that working? Lovely. So thank you, John. What I'm going to talk about now is a little bit more detail, I suppose, about what our Science Foundation programs are like. But again, if you have any questions at any point, please, you know, ask. There'll be time as well at the end if you've got anything specific, but hopefully I'll give you a general overview. So as John said, our Science Foundation program is a year on the beginning of a degree. We call it a general Science Foundation year because it is the sciences that we think you will need for the progression that you're going on to. So for example, if you wanted, say, something like dentistry, it's not that you'll be studying that with us for the year, you'll be studying the things that we think are essential for you to go on to that progression. So you'll be studying kind of general sciences with us. So that's the idea of the foundation program. So for example, we kind of divide up the program into pathways depending on what it is that you want to study. So we kind of divide the kind of group of our students kind of roughly down the middle. So we kind of have two main kind of halves to the program. There's an emphasis on things that might be biological, earth-based programs, or health-based programs. So for example, like some of the things that John was talking about. So all your healthcare are like all your dentistry, medicine. The biology ones are like the microbiology, zoology, psychology. So anything that you could think of that would be kind of biology focused, earth sciences or health, you would study with us. Maths, chemistry and nature of science, those are modules that everyone would do. And then you kind of have a major theme, which would be biology. So that is the main subject that you would study with us. And then towards the kind of second half of the year with us, you then focus on kind of the bits that you really want to kind of know more about. So it could be that you want to know more biology or have a bigger emphasis in chemistry. So depending on what it is that your degree is you're going on to, we recommend certain modules. So your foundation year is based on the kind of the pathway that you want to go to. So there are some general bits, but also some very specific bits based on what it is that we think is essential. So the other half is our engineering and what we call our physical sciences pathway. So again, that's the same. So for our engineering and physical sciences, those are if you wanted to do degrees like chemistry, maths, physics, or any of the engineerings or computer science. So that's all civil, electrical, mechanical, all those that kind of end in engineering. That's our engineering and physical sciences pathway. Again, it starts off with a very general maths, chemistry, and nature science, and your main kind of emphasis is going to be the physics, because for those programs you need a lot of kind of physical science, but also problem solving. So your major kind of area we'd look at is physics. But then again, into our second semester, it specialises based on what would be most essential for you. So for example, someone that wanted mechanical engineering would probably do more physics than someone that wanted to do something like computer science, and they might do more maths. So we have these kind of major bits, the kind of the main subjects you'll do, and then it kind of tailors towards the second semester based on what degree it is that you want to do. So we break it down into two pathways. We take about 90 to 100 students a year, and roughly speaking, we kind of split it 50-50. I know I said 90, which obviously that's not 50-50, but it is roughly speaking kind of half on each pathway. So for specifics, I've given you a list of some of the modules that we do right now. So for example, in the kind of maths areas, you could do a module in discrete maths. That's things like vectors and logic. You could look at some calculus, analytical methods, or stats. So again, the maths that you do while you're with us would be kind of specific to the degree you want to do. So for example, people that want to go into something more biological based often need more statistics than, for example, someone going on to engineering. So even the maths you do is going to be slightly more tailored, so you don't do all the bits. For example, a lot of people often ask, do we replicate A levels? No, we don't. We couldn't do that in a year, even if we tried. We do the bits that are similar to those topics. In some places, we won't touch any topics. And in some places, we even go beyond an A level, potentially even to, you know, kind of first year degree level. So we go into the bits that we think are most essential. For chemistry, we have a lot of choice. Again, it's based on what would be most important. So we have things like sustainability, or maybe industrial chemistry for things like our engineers. The biology, which Kate will definitely be able to explain all the differences between all the different biologies. But we have different ones because it's based on, for example, would you want more like human biology, which that's definitely things like your organisms, or would you want something that's more kind of thinking about things ecology based, or plant, or kind of environmentally based, which might be coming into your biology of populations. And then finally, we have our physics-based modules, which are things like mechanics, waves, electricity. Again, the ones that you would do would be dependent on what degree it is that you want to study. So we mentioned it a lot. I just wanted to highlight some of the progressions that we go on to. As John pretty much said, we progress on to anything that is pretty science-based at the University of Leeds. So we have 4 faculties that we progress on to. So there's the Faculty of Medicine and Health, there is the Faculty of Biological Sciences, the Faculty of Environment, and our Faculty of Engineering and Physical Sciences. And I couldn't list all the degrees that we progress onto. There's just too many of them. So I've tried to kind of branch them kind of via kind of some of the main bits. So these are just a snapshot. There are many more that we haven't listed because there are so many. So these are a few of our biological and health-based ones. Some of the engineering, and it's so lovely that you've actually put in the chat that a lot of the things that we progress onto are actually on the screen. So we've got a lot of engineering things, all the different kinds of area of maths and physics as well we go on to, and some of the things that people don't think about as being science, but some of the earth sciences. So for example, geography and sustainability and environmental management, those are things that it's helpful to have a science background in. So how our foundation year works is that what our kind of goal and our mission is to teach you the content that we think is most essential for those degrees, but also to help prepare you so that you'll be, in some ways, and hopefully, kind of in a better position when you start that degree than if you hadn't come via us. So we try to replicate some of maybe the teaching methods that you would actually experience on the degree itself, so that you can be best prepared for it. And we do that with our teaching, we do that with our assessment, and we do that with all the systems that we use. So for example, if you were going into something like chemistry, We do our labs in the labs that you would use on that degree. We do similar kinds of assessments, so like lab reports, portfolios, case studies, problem sets for things like maths. So all of our teaching and assessment is hopefully trying to best prepare you for all those study skills that you might need and all those transferable skills that you'll need both on the degree and also when you graduate. As part of it, also we have a lot of digital systems that we use, and people can tend to be a bit nervous about those. We have a great range of staff in the Lifelong Learning Centre, and in fact one kind of role that is specific to the Lifelong Learning Centre rather than the rest of the university. We have roles called academic mentors, so we have staff that can help you in digital systems if you've never seen them before. Sometimes when you come to university, we use systems for things like assessment that you may never have come across. So we know that that can be, you know, it can cause a bit of anxiety. So we have dedicated people that can help with these things as well as the main teaching teams. So things like maybe supporting you with even using things like Windows, Office 365, so kind of software for day to day, but even things like the labs, you know, getting around your calculator. So if you've never used a standard scientific calculator before, kind of figuring out where all the buttons are that you might need, we can help with all of those things, kind of high tech and low tech. So we're a dedicated team that teach on the programme. We're a small team, but we are university staff. We have worked in a lot of the schools, and we have great relationships with our progression degrees, so that we have hopefully this kind of seamless year with us and then you transition into that degree. We do a lot of small group work as well as big session work. Each student is assigned a personal tutor so that you have someone you can go to if you have any kind of queries or questions. We also have dedicated teams that look at things like academic skills and math support. We do dedicated one-to-ones for the sciences themselves as well. So if you're ever worried about anything, you can always kind of have a member of staff that you can come to and ask about things. As John's already said, there's also the guidance team, skills expert. There's a lot of dedicated support because we don't expect anyone to be a finished product before you even join us. That's the point of us, is to help you build up all of these skills, techniques and topics so that you're best kind of prepared for the year ahead and for the degree ahead of that. So actually, before we get to that, I'm actually going to hand over to Kate so that she can give you a small taster into kind of what a session might be like with us on course. So I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Kate.
Okay, I lost my unmute button. I'm also going to attempt to share my screen, and I actually practiced this earlier, which is a sure sign that it's going to go wrong for me. So let me see, have I done this correctly? If I do that, do my slides come up for you? Phew, what a relief. So hi everybody, as I said at the beginning, I'm Kate Plant, appropriately named because I'm one of the 2 biology tutors. So myself and my colleague Erica cover that biology content, and we do it in a number of modules. And what I like to do at the very beginning of my module, my first semester, so the first term you're with us, you would come along to my first lecture on my first, on the first module that you do with me. And I like to try and set the context of biology for everybody. I like to think about how biology is going to work for us as we study it, and how it might work for you in kind of going on to your degrees. So those of you who are purely down the engineering side, my apologies, I have a few nods to engineering that I've inserted into this, but I'm mainly sort of thinking about that biology angle. So I've started off for this evening with a quote from Douglas Adams. And if I had you in the room with me, I would be saying, so can anybody tell me what this quote has come from? I would like to interact with you. If anybody fancies unmuting or typing in, please do so. But I know it never quite works that way when we're online. So I'm going to assume that my class of all of you is busy shouting at me, and some of you are shouting, Kate, does that come from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? So Douglas Adams wrote the book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and this is a quote. The Hitchhiker's Guide is kind of like Wikipedia for the galaxy, I suppose, and it says, space is big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is. And I rather like that quote. And The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also has the very comforting words, don't panic, written on it. And I like that quote so much, I thought I'd steal it and I'd adapt it for our biology. So biology is a big topic. It's broad. We've seen from the vast array of degrees you might go on to study just how big biology is. But like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I would like to say to you, don't panic. I will be your guide and I will take you through some biology, and we'll try and kind of organize it a bit so that we can not feel overwhelmed by this mind-bogglingly bigness of biology. So for me, when I like to think about breaking down mind-boggling biology into bits that my brain can handle, because my brain's not the size of a planet, it's struggling to fit all of that biology in. So I try to break it down a little bit and think about how we might tackle studying biology. And the way that I like to do this is I like to think about levels of organization in biology and how they fit with what you might be interested in. So we might be interested in studying organisms at the level of the organism. And I've drawn a little man in here. Handily, I noticed that quite a few of you were interested in the kind of the human angle, the healthcare angle, and so on. And that's very much the case with our students. Lots of people are interested in the medicine, the sort of nursing area, the diagnostics area, etc. Or they might be interested in the biomedical research side of things, but we're interested in a particular organism, and that organism is man. And we can dig down inside our little man here, and we can take him apart, and we can see what he's made up of. And we can look at all the different organs that make him up. And the one I like to pick out to have a think about is the gut, the gastrointestinal tract. And I pick this one because I know that some of us are interested in food science and nutrition, and we might be interested in healthy eating and so on. So we might be particularly interested in this organ. And we can study our man by looking at the organs and seeing how they interact and talk to each other, thinking about physiology, how man organizes himself and keeps himself in balance as a whole organism by the interaction between all of these different parts of the body. So that's one level that we might think about studying things. I'm a bit of so my background is in the kind of the genetics, the biochemistry, the cell biology area. So I like to dig down into this a little bit deeper. And I look at that organ, the gastrointestinal tract, and I think, well, okay, what other organisms might we compare the gut from man compared to a different organism, for example? So I might say, okay, from an evolutionary geneticsy perspective, I might be interested in things that are quite closely related. I might be interested in comparing the gut of my man with the gut of a cow. So I'm quite interested in that kind of evolutionary adaptation side of thing. Other people might be more interested, not so much in the animal side of things, but you might be interested in the plant side of things. This is another harkening back to my background in, I guess, sort of 1980s sci-fi type things. This is a Triffid from the Day of the Triffids, John Wyndham's book. And the Triffid was a nasty human-eating plant. So if we were thinking about a Triffid, maybe a Triffid would have a gut. But of course, when we're thinking about plants, we've got to think about different organs. So we would think about the leaves of a plant. So we might be interested in comparing how different organisms achieve the same thing, basically get their nutrition. So from an evolutionary perspective, I, as somebody with a geneticsy background, I find that a quite interesting set of comparisons to make. At the cell biology end of things, I would dig down into that organ the gastrointestinal tract, and I would start to pick it apart a bit more detail. So I'm nosy, I like to see what things are made up of. So I might take a cross section of a part of it, and I might look at the level of the tissues. So now we're deep diving a bit further, and we're thinking about what tissues make up a section of our gut. And we've got a nice stained image taken using a light microscope. And if we look at this, we can identify all sorts of interesting cells. So I really love cell biology. And we look at this tissue and we can see we've got different sorts of cells doing different jobs. So we've got muscle cells. I don't know if my pointer shows up on your screen. I do love a laser pointer. And I do love a little animation. So hopefully you've got a laser pointer pinging around now, and I haven't broken my slides. So we've got 2 layers of muscle cells, and they're working together. Some of them are circular muscles and they go around the tube, and some of them are longitudinal and they go along the tube, and they're working together to squeeze the food through the gut. So we can think about what those are doing. We can see that on this inside level of cells, we've got the epithelium, this layer of cells which is going to absorb the nutrients of the gut and take it across into the body. So we've got what's labelled up here as the lumen of the gut. That's where all the food is going through. It's numbered 5 on the little image here. And the cells that are lining there are busy absorbing nutrients. And in amongst those, you might spot 1 or 2 special looking cells that have got like a little empty space in the middle. And these are a particular sort of cell called the goblet cell. And as a cell biologist, I'm really interested in things like that. So this is my area of getting excited. What does a cell look like? What makes the cell up? We might have a look at our goblet cell, and it's adapted for secretion. So the goblet cell, we can see things like the nucleus, but we can also see lots and lots of vesicles up at the top here, these little circular bits, and they're full of mucus, ready to help the food slide through the gut. So our goblet cells are actually working to help the muscle cells because they're helping that food to slide along. So I love looking at cells under microscopes and seeing how their structure fits with the function that they carry out. So what bits do they have that help them do their job? That's one of my big areas of interest. My other area of interest, along with genetics and cell biology, is the level of biochemistry. So I did my first degree in biochemistry and genetics. I couldn't choose between the 2. I loved them both. So biochemistry, what are the molecules that are important? What are the chemical processes that are going on in this cell in order to allow it to perform its function? And we might look in the mitochondria, for example, and that's this bit that's got the arrow pointing off of it. And we might see the biochemical pathway. So this particular pathway is Krebs cycle, and it's involved in making energy for the cell. It's going to make lots of this molecule here, ATP. And in our lectures in the last few weeks, we've had a look at ATP and we've thought about how this molecule stores energy. And in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to look at this process and we're going to understand what role it is these organelles, the mitochondria, play in making energy. We might look down at the DNA and we might think about how the genetics of the cell is working, what genes are turned on that make it into a goblet cell. So as a biologist, I find that biochemistry end of things very interesting. I do notice, however, that some people get so interested in that biochemistry end of things that they actually begin to stop thinking about the bio part. I can't understand why they do this, but they stop looking at the cell and they start just looking at these molecules over here, and they're people that we call chemists. So any of you who are interested in chemistry, that's where I hand over to our chemists, where you stop thinking about the cell and what this is doing for the cell, and you just start to concentrate on those molecules and the atoms that make it up. And some people, I even believe, go a step further and they go right down to that subatomic level and they start picking apart atoms and seeing what they're made up of. And those people, we call them the physicists. So we can think about not just mind-bogglingly big biology, but also science as a whole, and physics goes down below the level of us in biology. So that's one part of what we think about. In biology, we also like to look at the other end of the scale. So we go from our organism, this time I've picked a giraffe for my organism rather than a person, and we think, okay, if we go up the scale, what does our giraffe do? Who does he interact with? And again, here we can think about different levels. We can think about the level of the population of giraffes and how do they interact together. And our ecologists and our conservation biologists are likely to be quite interested in this, because you want to see how populations behave. Those people are also going to be interested in thinking not just about giraffes and how they interact with each other, but the wider ecology. So how does our giraffe interact with this environment that he lives in? What are the foods that he eats? Where does he go browsing? Is he going to eat this grass down here, or is he going to be more interested in browsing off the trees over here? How does that fit with its evolution, its adaptation to this environment? What parasites is it carrying? What's that doing in terms of its health and so on? So we can look beyond the level of the organism and see how it interacts with the rest of the environment. And we can take that from the level of looking at the immediate environment all the way up to looking at the level of the whole planet. And that's where we start to hand on to our environmental scientists, where they start to look at things like global warming and understanding things at the level not of individual ecosystems, but they're now interested in the planet as a whole. And again, I do hear tell that other scientists take this a step further than we do in biology. So our physicists actually leave the planet altogether and they go off and study stuff like astrophysics. So mind-boggling biology is just one part, of course, of mind-boggling science. So I thought to wrap up with, I would take the quote that I have stolen from Douglas Adams, and I would hand it on to my physicist colleagues. So this is Rosaria. She's one of our physics tutors. She's just joined us this year. And I asked for her permission to pop her face on my presentation and give her the quote. And she would say, physics is big and small. And you just won't believe how mind-bogglingly, vastly, hugely big physics is. So for those of you who the biology hasn't spoken to you, of course, remember that that little snapshot of biology fits in this much bigger picture of the sciences as a whole. So I'm going to stop talking there. I'm going to hit my mute button. If anyone wants to ask me any questions biology-wise, please feel free. Otherwise, I shall hand back to my colleagues, I guess, John, to take any general questions and so
on. Thanks, Kate. That was really, really interesting. Thank you very much. See, I personally love these sessions because I get to find out lots of different things that I'd probably never get a chance to hear normally. Yeah, thanks so much. It's great to get a flavour of what you may learn on the course, particularly for biology. If you've got any questions for Kate or Katie or myself, and just general questions, please feel free to use the chat or switch on your microphone, whichever you're most comfortable with. Really, we're really happy to answer any questions that you have. Anything that crops up, please do put it in the chat. If it's specific about a particular progression route that you're interested in, or just a general question about going to university, just generally, going to university as an adult, or it could be about the finance, anything at all, we're really, really happy to answer any questions that you have. So now we've got a bit of an overview of what foundation year is, what you'll learn on the course, and then a bit of a taster. I think the next step will probably be to hear from some students who have done it, and they can give you their perspective, because I think it's great that we can give you our perspective on what it's like to do a foundation year and why they are great, but also I think sometimes to have that perspective from somebody who's done it can also kind of add an extra layer, I think, of understanding. So we're very, very lucky to be joined by two students today. Before we've got that, I think we've got a question. Just wondering if the Science Foundation students face any social restrictions or issues what would be in their second year when they enter the course afterwards. Yeah, Kate, that's worded absolutely fine. No, not at all, I would say. as a foundation year student, you are a student of the university. So when you start your course, you get a student card like everybody else, and you get access to everything that everybody else will get access to. So the library, for example, all the societies and services that the student union would offer, and everything else. So in no way does being a foundation year student, put any restrictions really on what you can do while you're at university. I mean, the students, Nick and Stephen, will give a bit of more of a perspective perhaps about that after, but in my perspective, actually, you get a head start really, because you get that extra year to become acclimatized and, accustomed to being on campus. And actually, when you start your degree, whatever that is, and you've sat there with often people who have, this is their, when they turn up in September, that's their first day on campus. They've got to figure all that out, and you've already done it. With the libraries, you're used to kind of using them. I mean, it's little things like taking out books. It doesn't sound like a massive thing, but it's good to know how to do it when you start your degree. That's kind of something that I'm sure people on your course might ask, or just using the libraries in general, or knowing where to go for things. So actually, I think it's the opposite. I think you're more kind of, you get access to more things because you're there longer for the extra year. Just seeing if we've got any other questions. Katie, we've got a question about the timetables. What do the course timetables look like?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, my vague answer is going to be it can change every year. The university, we have central kind of rooms for things, so we ask for certain things, but it can change every year. How we work roughly and what we try to request is that you'll have at least one morning free every week, and you'll have one afternoon free every week. We do that so that people that might have childcare, they might want a part-time job, they can still do things. We wouldn't say a huge job, but a kind of small part-time job, so at least you can plan. We don't start any earlier than 9 o'clock, and we try not to finish any later than 5. The days, some days will be full days. So you might kind of start at 9 and kind of finish at about 4-ish, at 5-ish. But other days will be, for example, you'll have gaps in them so that you can be doing kind of things like one-to-ones, group work, all of those things. So I would say out of the 5 days, it's about 20 to 22 contact hours, I would say. So you're in classes for about 22 of those hours out of a full week. And like I say, so you will have gaps, and we try to aim for one morning and one afternoon free, but it changes every year. So I can't say what it will be next year, but at least that's what it is at the minute.
We've just had a couple more questions, if that's okay, and then we'll hear from Stephen and Nick, and then we should have time for more questions after as well. But Aishrat has asked, what's the pass rate for dentistry and medicine on the interdisciplinary science with foundation year course?
Super. So I'm going to answer 2 things just in case. So students that apply for things like dentistry, not everyone that applies will necessarily be offered a place. So there's kind of a first bit, and I wasn't sure if you meant the pass rate to kind of get on the course or from the foundation year onto the degree. So I'll cover both bits just in case. So what happens when you apply is you apply to the foundation year and you indicate what it is degree-wise that you'd like to go on to. And as part of your admissions process, you will do things, you might do things like a small section of interviews called MMIs, so they're multi-mini interviews. So there are lots of things for those that you have to do before you come even on the foundation year, but you would do them if you were applying direct to dentistry, medicine, or whatever. So it's the exact same assessments. So there's kind of that I'm wondering if you're asking the pass rate of those. And then once you're on the foundation year, it's just about the grades while you're on the foundation year. You don't have any other things other than the modules you're doing with us. And it's called a progression agreement. So we have an agreement with the degree that you want to go on to that says, if you get these grades, your place is guaranteed. And so I'm wondering if you're thinking, what is the pass mark for that bit? So again, it could be subject to change at the moment. The kind of module grades you would need are kind of around the 65s, I would say. And it depends from student to student. So for example, last year for dentistry, 3/4 progressed. And when I say 3/4, that's 3 out of 4. So it's not like there were a lot that didn't get there. It's one student that didn't. But that being said, they're looking at applying for other courses, potentially at looking at other institutions, and we're supporting them to try and still get a successful progression. They had an alternative, a plan B, so we work with our students with that. So they didn't get dental surgery their first choice, but they did get their second choice. So if, you know, hopefully it never happens, but if a progression isn't met, we try and support you into something alternative that you would be looking for. I hope that kind of answers potentially both versions of what the question might have been.
Oh, thanks, Katie. I think we've had a few more questions come in. Maybe we just have a quick look at these for a couple of minutes, and then if that's so. Just Helen, you were just asking about the access to higher education diploma from Open College. So they are accepted for our foundation year courses. So access to higher education diplomas would be accepted, and the amount of distinctions, merits, and passes you would need would be on the science webpage online, the foundation year webpage. You've also asked about what do you need to do, where do you put predicted grades on UCAS application. So generally speaking, if you're studying a course at the moment, when you ask for a reference from your personal tutor on the course you're studying, they should also provide your predicted grades on UCAS application as well. So they should be the people to provide your predicted grades, as far as I'm aware. So that's something they should provide. So Ashra, would we accept access to higher education and social sciences? Yeah, so Katie's nodding, so yes, that would be accepted. And I think the last question Sana's asked Katie, if Sana wants to do dentistry but wants to know, do you need to sit the BMAT before applying?
Super great question. So the University of Leeds does the BMAT test. I'm hoping the great news, the relief for you, is if you come through the foundation year, you don't do it before. We have an agreement, because some of our students might not necessarily have the relevant subject knowledge to be able to be successful at the BMAT. We don't ask you to do it before. And in fact, it's not a condition. If you come through the foundation year, they take the grades with us instead. So if you wanted to look to go to another university, we'd recommend you do the BMAT in case you wanted a backup plan, anything like that. So it's your choice, but you don't have to if you come down through the foundation year route, because you'd be doing some of those sciences with us anyway. So they take the grades from us in place of it.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Katie. And yeah, I see more questions coming. We'll have a look at those as we go along, but I think we'll probably introduce Stephen and Nick, and then any questions that we haven't answered in the chat, we'll answer them at the end as well. So do keep your questions coming in. But thank you very much, everybody. So I'll introduce Nick and Stephen, because thanks very much, firstly, both of you, for giving up time this evening to talk about your experiences on the foundation year courses. So we'll start with Stephen, if that's okay. Stephen, I believe you studied the interdisciplinary science foundation year,
yes,
and then you're now on psychology your first year, is that right?
That is correct. Is the mic picking me up okay?
Sounds absolutely brilliant to me. So
brilliant.
I wonder if you could just let us know about what it was like to study on the course and what to do.
So a little bit about me. I'm in my 30s, and I have an anxiety disorder, and I'm also a registered carer. So, and I didn't progress further than high school. So for me, I didn't know this was an option for me. So the interdisciplinary science foundation year was an incredible help for me, because it refreshed all my knowledge from high school and brought me up through the college level and onto the university level. And it literally gave me the foundation of knowledge that I needed to build from, and the good study practices that are paying dividends. Now I'm on the psychology course. It's the point where by the end of the foundation year, I was used to, so I would go in at like 9 in the morning and I'd stay there till roughly 5, because I used to work those sort of hours. And I would do all my revision and everything on campus. And now in the beginning of my first year, the workload is a lot less, because it slowly ramps up as you go through the year to help you get used to the topics. And I'm finding that now I'm actually studying the course, I'm having more free time currently than I'm used to. But it really does help you build up that knowledge and basis. As far as the question about the social restrictions or issues, I actually found that it actually really helped me. Because I'm a mature student, it would be easy for someone in my position to self-isolate, especially with my anxiety disorder. But I found that there were so many people who were just asking questions like, where is this building? What's the way to this place on campus? Times around lectures, different rules around how to contact people, and just small issues that every student has when they're first at university that I had already been through, that it meant that I was able to offer that advice to people, and it broke that sort of social barrier very easily and very readily. And as a first year student, I am treated by my lecturers and by my peers as just a fresher, the same as everyone else. I obviously do disclose that I did a foundation year, but that's entirely your own preference towards that. So in general, there are no negative effects from having done the foundation year. As far as the courses themselves, like Kate Plant's lectures on biology, I hated biology in high school, did not enjoy it, couldn't get my head around it at all. After the foundation year, I have a new kind of love for it. I follow various now like YouTube channels on biology, the same with chemistry and with physics. And through the foundation year, I discovered a passion for mathematics that I didn't even know that I possessed, to the point where you're allowed to choose optional modules, and I chose a physics module, and I think I was because I was studying psychology, I was on the biology pathway, which means the maths that I did was more statistics based, as Katie explained earlier, and the chemistry was also much more biology based as a result of that. But I believe I was one of the only, if not the only student on that pathway who was studying physics. And that was purely because I knew that if I struggled, I had the support that I needed to help me through it. Every single person that was a lecturer of mine had at least 5 or 6 emails from me asking for clarification on an issue, whether that's I didn't understand the way something was explained, or I needed a follow-up, or I needed clarification. And that level of support was there throughout the entirety of the foundation year for me, which was especially helpful as someone with anxiety. There was also the welcome desk at the LLC. So even if it was just needing to know or needing to be reassured where a specific building was and how to get to it, someone there would know just the way to walk there. And the support in relation to just life issues. There were various members of the LLC that I would just message and be like, hey, there's this thing going on in the background. I don't think it will affect my studies. It's affecting me mentally or emotionally. If it does become an issue, I'll let you know then, but can I just talk to someone and just vent about this, please? And there'd be people I'd talk to, and they'd signpost me to various persons within the university. So there's various mental health things within the university that you could, various mental health organizations within the university that you can talk to. There's various people you can phone if you have issues. Financial support. Obviously, I've worked my whole life. Being a student is a whole different kettle of fish. It's a whole new series of things. And so I had people just break down these things that could easily have just been intuitive to other people into a way that I could understand. And there was never any sort of, it never felt like it was a burden on them. They're always happy to share that knowledge with me and to help me through all those issues that I had. As far as going on to the psychology year, psychology course, we are right now in psychology doing the statistics, which we covered in great depth in mathematics. And we're now using those same statistics to perform analysis and using software to actually turn it from just purely numbers into an actual application. But it's really, for me, it was the study methods, the ability to look at things and occasionally look at journal articles, and the ability to be academically critical of things. That was a skill that I had never worked on and never needed to work on. And it was that reframing of how I thought that the foundation year was incredibly helpful for me for.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That was absolutely brilliant. I always really enjoy listening to students like yourself and your experiences on the course as well, because I think it's so valuable to hear from people like yourself and your experience of what it's like to be on the course, maybe prior as well, before you've started, and hear your journey to where you are now on your psychology course. I tell you what I found really great as well, when you were talking about having a love for maths now as well, and actually kind of experience biology, because I think that's a great point, you know, that we perhaps don't always kind of think about as well, that, you know, by doing a foundation year, you're going to be able to kind of maybe experience areas of study that you might not have done if you hadn't done the foundation year. And generally, I think university is a great space to kind of have that time to explore different avenues, even if it is in your specific subject area. So that's really good to hear. And thanks so much for touching on the support that you were able to access during your studies as well. And yeah, that support is available for the duration of a degree study as well, so it doesn't end, you know, when somebody leaves the Lifelong Learning Centre. And there's a lot of great support networks, as Stephen mentioned, that you can access across the university as well. So thanks so much for that. And if there's, I'm sure Stephen would be very happy to answer any questions. If you have any, put them in the chat. I'm sure. Hopefully, anyway. I hope you don't mind me saying that. Should have asked really, shouldn't I? And
that's
then,
fine.
oh, thank you. And finally, we've got Nick. And Nick, have you graduated from neuroscience now?
Oh, yes.
You have. Amazing. So thanks, Nick, for giving up part of your evening. Right? And if you're able just to share a bit about your experiences on, you know, the foundation year and your neuroscience course, and maybe what we're doing now, that'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So what to say? Feel free to bob anything that you actually want to know, or I'll just ramble on for forever. So yeah, I did. 1 second. I'm trying to help my boys cook spaghetti bolognese. They're cooking dinner. Give me 1 second. Yes.
Do you want to put,
There's 30 people intrigued at what you're doing. So
do you want to put the lid on after I've stirred it on?
yes, and turn it down one. Yeah. Cool. I'm going to shut the door so I can get a bit of peace and quiet. So apologies, everyone. Otherwise, we're going to be having completely burnt spaghetti bolognese. So yeah, so I started the foundation year coming back to education from having 17 years out. So again, I'm in my 30s, same as Stephen, and obviously it can be quite a shock, you know, to the system coming back to kind of formal education after so long. But the great advantage to talk about kind of at first my experiences on the foundation year are it is a highly supportive environment. As Stephen mentioned, you know, there's lots of additional support. They're aware of what adult life is like, and how adult life is slightly more complicated than if you were coming straight from school A levels and maybe still living with parents and coming kind of straight to university from that. You know, adults, you know, life can throw you curveballs and you can have a lot more to deal with, such as, I mean, as you've just heard, I have two kids, you know, and, you know, as I progress through university, kind of care kind of issues with parents and stuff. So, you know, at the university, and I said specifically the LLC, is very supportive and can offer you whatever you kind of need to not only help you from a kind of a pastoral, personal perspective, but also from an academic one. Like I say, when you've had 17 years out, you know, the idea of writing an essay and structuring kind of, you know, written word, you know, to pass, you know, a grade is alien. And so, you know, that all the support is there, and the lecturers are very I guess kind of aware that people come from all different backgrounds. So I don't think you should have any kind of fears or worries about where you've come from. You know, they're all just there to get you to where you want to go, and we'll provide you with whatever support you need for that. As far as what the foundation gives you to prepare you for the degree, so obviously I progressed towards the School of Biomedical Sciences, and I was surprised when I was doing my degree to start with. that a lot of the students hadn't done the chemistry, you know, so they'd done biology, they'd done maths, but no chemistry. So in year one, for those interested in kind of anything to do with, you know, biomed or medicine, the first semester is the same for everyone. So medicine and biomed do the same. You have 11 weeks, and each week is a body system, and it's exactly the same. And you know, when you start, and the other half of the semester is called the basis of life, which is all biochemistry. And so there were a lot of students that I was on the course with that had done no chemistry, that were having to go to additional support, tutorials, lectures, seminars, just to brush up on the basic level of chemistry that the foundation year gives you to be able to handle that kind of material in your first year. So I was actually far more prepared for my first year of my degree than a lot of the traditional entry A-level students. And I found that, you know, that was kind of testament to how well designed the foundation year is, and how it gives you that full complement of skills. And the other module, the nature of science module, which you may not be aware of what that involves, there's a lot of the academic stuff that will help you with all your reports, your essays, depending on which program you go to. You know, I know people mentioned, I wrote some notes, kind of the computer sciences and math side of things, there's less obviously extensive writing. You know, it's more kind of lab reports and lots of formulae and equations, you know, pages and reams of equations. But in a lot of the other subjects, getting the skills to do all that academic writing and report writing is critical, because they usually count for large amounts of credits and large percentages of modules. So like I said, the foundation really does prepare you. When you move to your school, whichever school that may be, it is slightly daunting because you are a mature student, but you can play tricks on them because they're all quite young. So for day one, I walked up to the front of the lecture hall in lecture one, day one, and everyone sat up. I was like, no, I'm only kidding. I'm sitting down, one of you guys. So, you know, it's a good way to introduce yourself and play some tricks and get them to kind of open their mindset to the fact that not everyone who studies at university is 18 years old. And I think must be Paul Devlin who's mentioned this stat before, that around 10 to 20% of students at the university are actually mature students. So it's not as though you're the unique ones and the only ones who are mature kind of coming to uni, and that's kind of quite reassuring that there are many other people like you. I guess what should I talk about? As you progress through the degree, obviously most degree structures are very similar. You do a broad base of information for your first year. Second year, you specialize into kind of the real in-depth, you know, nuts and bolts of what you do. So I think a lot of people, word of warning for anyone thinking about neuroscience, I had a lot of people on my course who said, I liked psychology at A-level, so I did neuroscience. There's only one module in the entire degree that is anything remotely related to psychology, and that's cognitive neuroscience. And that's one module in your second year. But that kind of demonstrates how broad, you know, the biomedical sciences are. You know, you look at everything from you know, the cellular biology pathway stuff, because biomed in effect is looking at, you know, medical solutions. You know, I guess, you know, over the years I've developed, you know, my own kind of 2 pence worth opinion of where medical doctors fit in and biomedical scientists. So a doctor, as we probably all know, diagnoses and treats, but they don't look at cause and they don't look at cures, because the only way they're able to actually treat a patient is if it's been 10 years of research into these you know, treatments, and now legally their insurance policy covers them to prescribe that. But if you want to be on the cutting edge of what's the next step, what's the latest thing, then biomedical science is for you. And that's really how the University of Leeds in general kind of really pushes it. It is a research uni. You are getting taught by people at the cutting edge of their field, and they're able to pass on this kind of latest level knowledge. And then because, you know, it's a top academic institute, you're expected to kind of get up to that speed so you can actually also yourself get, you know, on the cutting edge of what's out there and what's available. And that can be challenging, and they do push you, and there's a reason it's a top uni, because it's not the easiest. But if you're there to, you know, if you've got a goal and a purpose, again, the support is there. I openly admit that the LLC is more supportive. It's a great transition year to transition you from kind of, you know, what people might have been used to at school, where it's not as independent learning based. But the key bit about university is it's independent learning. And so the foundation year is great for giving you that transition to basically give you a bit of, you know, hold your hand a little bit and guide you, but also give you that space to be able to go, right, how do I actually learn for myself? Because as you progress through to the final year, you obviously choose a lot of the things you do. So a lot of the modules, although there is a written element, you can choose what topic it's on. So I guess moving on to what I'm kind of doing now, I specialized in motor control. So one of the things people don't, or people were shocked, even the ones on my course were quite shocked about, is at the start of second year, I approached an academic and asked if I could get involved in their research group. I just sent them an email. I just said, hi, would like to get involved in this area of research. Can I? Don't expect it to be an easy yes, but that is an option. You know, people think they have to wait till after their degree to get involved in a research group. You don't. You know, if I got involved, you know, start of second year, and that helped shape the topics I chose. It helped strengthen my knowledge in key areas for my degree. It really kind of helped me perform, you know, well, you know, and facilitate me to graduate, you know, with a good classification. So now, you know, having spent 2 years focusing on motor control, I'm now looking at a PhD. So I'm just, you know, looking for funding at the moment, which will be in kind of looking at this. It kind of comes across a lot of people's mentioned electrical engineering, robotics, computer science, AI. So my project's final year project, which is, you know, in your final year, you do this huge project that lasts the whole year. And it takes months and months and months and many long hours and many headaches. But it really helps you set yourself up to be able to apply out in the, you know, if you choose to leave academia after your undergrad, it gives you that knowledge to be able to apply for a specific area and gives you like a unique selling point for employers. But I'm choosing to stay kind of within academia for another 3 years because I'm a glutton for punishment. And like I said, wanting to look at how, like I said, this is obviously just, I'll tell you what it is, and don't worry, you don't need to understand this for anything at all, ever, if you're not going to do this yourself. Looking at how we can use the neural control of muscles to control prosthetic limbs using AI deep learning networks. So again, you know, the research group I work in, we have computer scientists, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, control engineers. I'm actually one of the only biology-based people in it because it's a very you know, the cutting edge research is very interdisciplinary, and I always look back to the foundation year and think it's so you know, such a well conceived idea as the foundation year, because it teaches you that you can't just go in a narrow field, you know, and that was my perception when I started, was, oh, you have to look at something, you know, really narrow at uni. It's not. It is that broad thing. It's how does this actually apply, you know, to here and there, and that, you know, that's the great thing about universities, is you meet so many people. You know, the people I work with in the group come from China, Germany, Mexico, Portugal, the States, India, you know, so it's a great experience. The foundation year sets you up fantastically, and you're in no way disadvantaged above any other student that's entering via A levels, and all the options and possibilities that are open. You know, I left school at 16 with 5 crap GCSEs that I tried to blag the grades of coming onto the foundation year, and got pulled up for it in my first interview. And on that point, you know, there are other options. You know, you can do entry maths and English exams. You know, the foundation year, you know, I couldn't prove any grades whatsoever, and I'm now sat here with a first class honours degree in neuroscience, looking at doing a PhD. So don't think there are any barriers in your way. You can do whatever you choose to. Just put your mind to it. You know, commitment, consistency, and you'll get there. Told you I can talk on, so yeah, I'll stop. I'm out.
Nick, thank you so much. That's fascinating, and thank you so much for giving an overview of how, you know, you started and where you are now. I think it was great to hear about. I think what you're touching on about, you know, the Lifelong Learning Centre, understanding that adults, you know, particularly adults who are coming on to our courses of foundation years, you know, are going to bring other things with you. You know, it's going, you know, parents, carers, you know, having a job alongside your studies. We understand and we recognise these are all things and responsibilities that you're going to come along with, and there is a lot of support, and there is a lot of other people who have done it, like Nick, for example, and lots of other people like Nick and Stephen, who, you know, managed to fit all these things in their life and study as well. So you won't be alone, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, if you are a parent or a carer, or, you know, a bit older and coming on to university. And also talking about that transition as well, and how it supported you, the foundation year, going on to study into your neuroscience degree. And it sounds quite fascinating what you're doing now. I can't confess to understand too much, but it sounds really fascinating.
I'm still faking it till I make it, so don't worry. It's still the feeling's mutual.
Right. So thank you both of you. Thanks so much for giving up your time to speak. Then it really is helpful. I imagine to everybody who's listening to this. Hopefully you can see my screen now as well. So just to mention that any adults who are here today, you're very welcome to also access our guidance service. Now, and just to mention as well, students of any age. So if you're still doing qualifications at sixth form or college at the moment, feel free to email us with the Lifelong Learning Centre email address. And if you have any questions, we're really happy to support you, because as I said, on the foundation year course, we have a wide range of students. So we will have students who are 18, 19 who have maybe just finished their studies, and students right up until like I said, the oldest student at the moment is in the 70s who's studying at the Lifelong Learning Centre. If you are an adult, you're really welcome to use our guidance service as well. So it's a free service that we can offer at the Lifelong Learning Centre. It's an impartial one-to-one appointment. It's not about trying to push a course on you at Leeds. It's about sitting down with you and finding out more about what your options are if you want to go on studying, and if you did want to do that, how would you get to the course you want to study? So Mohammed, who's our guidance officer, and Denise, they're experienced and incredibly knowledgeable about courses in the local region, about courses at the university, but also in colleges, and also in universities in the region as well. And they can provide specialist support, about finance, applications, if you come in with qualifications, perhaps if the qualifications from overseas as well. But any questions like that, if you haven't been to university before and you're an adult learner, feel free to make an appointment with us or get in contact. And I will hand it over to, I guess, you guys to put in the chat if you have any more questions. Let's have a look. So if you have, I know we're kind of probably running over now, so if you've got to go, that's absolutely fine. But if anybody has any kind of last questions, feel free to ask them. And I will also make sure to put a link in a second to our link tree as well, because that has a lot of information about us at the Lifelong Learning Centre. So it's got a link to our social media, it's got a link to our web pages, it's got a link to guidance there as well, so you can book an appointment using that link tree. But if anybody's got any questions, so Aishrat is asking, would you accept access to higher education, social science to study a science and not psychology? So I believe yes. Is that right, Katie?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I've seen a couple of questions that have been asking about, does it matter what subjects they've studied for any of their courses? No, it's more about what type of qualification it is. So whether it be A-levels or access to whatever it is, it doesn't really matter about the topics themselves. It's more about the grades within those. So no barriers for any of the qualifications. You're just as eligible for the sciences. So it's more, do you have that kind of type of qualification rather than a specific subject? So yeah, everyone's welcome.
One other question we had earlier as well, Katie, which might be worth just kind of, I did put in the chat, but just mentioning, was around deadlines for applications. Might just be worth just confirming that.
Super. So we have different deadlines based on our different, for some of the healthcare courses. And healthcare covers a wide variety, so I'll try and be as specific as I can. There is an early deadline, which most programs at the University of Leeds follow for things like dentistry, medicine, diagnostic radiography, cardiac physiology, and audiology. So any of the things that are within the Faculty of Medicine and Health that go on to any of those courses, they have an early October deadline for UCAS. Anything that is healthcare that is a nursing-based course, so nursing, midwifery, the kind of the child nursing, mental health nursing, those are the general January deadline for UCAS. Things that fall within the Faculty of Medicine and Health that is just a general deadline is also psychology or the neuroscience, anything like that. So it's just the healthcares that are dentistry, medicine, audiology, cardiac physiology, diagnostic radiography. So we have 5 that are the early deadline, but it matches what it would be for direct entry. So there's no confusion over the dates.
Thanks very much for that, Katie.
Welcome.
I don't think we've got any more questions, so unless anybody has anything left to put in the chat or switch their microphones on, I think that's it from myself, Katie, Kate, Stephen and Nick. So thank you so much to everybody for coming along this evening. We'll send a email out to you tomorrow possibly, and it'll have a link to all the things we spoke about today with regards to booking a guidance appointment, the information on our website, and also we'll send a recording. That's what I was looking for. That's the word. That's the word I was looking for. So yes, Sana, for the next academic year, so for 2023 entry, September 2023, now it would have passed for dentistry applications. So Konstantinos is just asking about when you usually receive an offer as well. Okay, just to finally mention that perhaps.
Yes, I was about to mute myself. I thought I was already on mute. So when do you usually get an offer? We try to process them as quickly as we can. We're working on the ones that have that early application process. So we're trying to work through our healthcare ones that had the October deadline first. But we do them pretty much as they come in. So I would say kind of hopefully, I'm going to curse my admissions team now, but we try to get you an offer kind of in kind of a couple of weeks after you've applied. So how our process works is for anything that isn't healthcare, so things like engineering, general kind of sciences, you would apply for us. We check your kind of qualifications, things like that, the widening participation criteria. You would get an offer, and then you'd be invited to a visit to come and visit us specifically to find out more about the course, and maybe have a one-to-one if you'd like. So our offers, hopefully you will get reasonably quickly after you've applied. But at the minute, we are just prioritizing those healthcare ones because they have extra things they have to do called MMIs. So we have to do those first, but otherwise, we'll be hopefully getting to them soon. So I'd say in a couple of weeks if you've already applied.
Katie, I don't know if you've seen that last question as well that Tanvi has just put in as well. So Sana, healthcare applications would have till the 25th of January, wouldn't they?
Yes.
For nursing, midwifery courses.
Yes,
so you've
definitely.
had plenty of time for those courses.
Yes.
But Tanvi is just asking about, he has an open university modules, would like to study full-time to the foundation year. Would these modules help or harm an application?
That's one of those things where it depends. So what, I'm going to sound really awful here, probably best emailing us and letting us know, and we can look at them specifically. It depends on kind of what kind they are and how big they are, and kind of what level they were at, and if it has anything to do with the course you're going to go on to study. So it there's a lots of ifs there.
Sorry, Katie. I was going to say, Tanvia, what it might be worth doing in that instance, because it's quite specific, is it may be worth having a guidance appointment with our guidance officer, Mohammed, and actually he can go through the courses you've studied, because the level of the qualification can often have an impact on certain things as well. So it's probably, if as long as it's one of those courses that you've got until the 25th of January to apply for, it's definitely worth, I would say, booking a guidance appointment or getting in contact with us if you've got any questions. But anything that crops up after this as well, feel free to send us an email, because as I said at the start, this isn't a kind of one-stop kind of shop where we go through everything and that's it. We're not contactable until we do this again. No, not at all. We are open at the Lifelong Learning Centre, and feel free to come along to the university. It's a public space. It's open for anybody to come and have a coffee, come and visit us in the Lifelong Learning Centre, and get a feeling of what it's like as well at the university. Don't feel you have to wait till an open day or something like that. It's an open public space that you can kind of be on whenever you want. But yeah, thanks so much, everybody, and I'm sure everybody's dying now to have their tea, so I'll stop waffling on now. But great to meet you all. Thanks so much for giving up your time this evening.